Today is episode 17 with Dr. B.
Welcome to the Harness Your ADHD Power podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
Hey, dears, I'm so glad that you could join me for today's podcast episode. You know, if you've been sidelined for years instead of being in the game of your life, it's time to get activated, to get off the bench and get onto the playing field. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it. You know, if you're into cars or gardening or fitness or reading or music or whatever your passion is, you don't need a reminder or a push to go for it. You just do. It's because you want to do it rather than you need to do it. There's no dragging your heels. It's more like you can't wait to do whatever it is that you're passionate about or you love. But when you need to do something instead of want to do something, you might be dragging your heels and not getting there very quickly, if at all. You talk about your ideas, your dreams, your goals, your plans, and yet you aren't any closer to achieving them than when you first conceived them. And if that's been years now, you're probably feeling pretty bad about yourself. And the significant people in your work or your personal life might be thoroughly confused and frustrated with you. You might even be feeling hopeless and thinking, what's the point in having dreams or goals? Because you can't commit to them. And you can't make them happen. In fact, you don't want to commit to anything because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your word to yourself or to others that anything is actually going to happen. It's a terrible feeling. Motivation is such an interesting topic to me. Years ago when I was studying with Jim Rohn, he said that we had to have a good enough reason to be motivated to take action. Hence, motivation. Your motive or good enough reason, and ation, your action or activation. He said that needing to do something wasn't a good enough reason. It's the wanting that's the driver here, the energy that activates us. And this motivation can only activate us when there's no resistance from any part of us to slow us down or sabotage us. Back to my examples of reading or gardening or cars or working out. If you're passionate about any one of these and motivated to engage, but there's parts of you that object, then it's probably not going to happen until you get clear on the resistance and resolve it. Generating the motivation to get things done is more than coming up with your good enough reason to take action. And it's more than clearing the resistance. You need a vision that's going to pull you towards it, rather than you feeling like you're pushing a boulder uphill every time that you want to be motivated. The field of neurolinguistic psychology talks about two styles of motivation, towards and away from. The towards is you being pulled to what it is that you want. The away from is you being pushed away from the fire or the chaos of the moment, only far enough to be out of immediate danger. And once things cool down, you're comfortable again. And you just slide back into the old ways of doing things until the next fire ignites, and then the same thing happens again. The towards is your internal motivation, and the away from is your external motivation. When forces outside of you are the push to get things done, you're always dependent on what's happening outside of you, not on you. When the source of your motivation comes from within you, it's yours for life. I've had times in my life when I wasn't motivated and times when I was. And I've wondered what the difference is and what I could do to be motivated when I want to be motivated and not have to wait until I become motivated. Perhaps this is how you are too. When your motivation isn't consistent about very similar looking tasks, others may just scratch their head and think that you're being lazy or irresponsible or making excuses. And you might even think the same about yourself. Well, since we can't wait until we get motivated by some magical occurrence, and we need to be motivated when and where we want to be, we have to learn how to generate motivation, that good enough reason to take action. And this is a doable task. Since you weren't born being motivated to do those things that you do so effortlessly, you discovered that they were easy or without struggle. Why were they? Because the meaning you gave to them made them that way. The meaning you gave them was fun, interesting, new, exciting, novel. You get the point. So if you're following where this is going, since you are the meaning maker in your life, you have the ability to give new meanings to whatever you're struggling with, so it becomes as easy as the other things. An important discovery that I made years ago was that I hadn't yet learned the very important pre-skills of generating motivation, which were important to more than just my desire to get things done. As I explored what I needed to know how to do that would allow me to generate motivation, I saw that it had to be more than just an intellectual journey. I had to feel the motivation or the underlying feeling that was driving me forward, and I had to integrate it into my neurology. As I've said so many times before, I'm a work in progress just like you. There are still times when motivation is an issue for me. However, I have tools to find my good enough reasons to take action. And since I wasn't born knowing how to generate motivation and follow through by taking action, and neither were you, so long as you're teachable, you can learn just like I did. How do you do that? One life experience at a time. No, seriously. We're getting closer to today's 3 important points with relevant stories, an action step, and a favorite quote of mine. So let's keep going. And in case you think I'm telling fairy tales here or offering false hope, that's not the case. There's definitely work that needs to be done in order to achieve this motivated towards state of being. However, as I said before, if you're teachable and you're willing to be a student of your own life, you can learn how to generate the motivation that you want when you want it. And once you discover the steps and what they are for you, you'll be glad that you stayed willing and open-minded. And while you're getting to those keys, I suggest that you cultivate a lot of curiosity and self-love, because you're already hurting from feeling like a failure or a flake, and you don't need a harsh attitude or impatience with yourself to boot. I want you to remember that you are not what you do or don't do. You are more than that. We are not defective or less than as people, as human beings. We're just wired differently. And the difference is actually pretty cool once you have a different perspective and you have the tools that you need for your own success. And in this case, it's what you're going to need to know to give the right meanings to things so that you're motivated towards your heart's desires. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at what good enough reasons are and what you can start doing to generate the motivation you want. And please remember that knowing is only the first step. The next step is taking action on what you know to get new results, and then fine-tuning your process and results as you go along. Remember the course correcting? This is a process, so please don't let yourself off the hook here with taking action once, not getting the results you hope for, and stopping there. Course correct and keep going. Today's 3 important points are how you can generate your good enough reason to take action, how you can build self-trust and learn to keep your word to yourself, and how you can track and see your progress to validate your motivation.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast show notes, great free content from Dr. B, plus programs and services. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Now back to being an adult with ADHD in today's world. It's almost story time, but first, you need a win. You need to remember and acknowledge and celebrate at least one thing that's good about you or has gone right today. Just one thing. Perhaps it's others telling you how much nicer it is to spend time with you, Or maybe it's getting easier to do what you say that you'll do. Or perhaps you've followed through on something important at work or school. Or maybe you're becoming willing to do something that you never thought you could. Whatever you choose, it's up to you. However, I want you to choose something right now and celebrate it, either aloud or to yourself. I want you to have a win and acknowledge that at least one thing has gone right in your day, is right about you, even if you're so deeply disappointed in yourself for not doing what you say that you'll do time and time again, and others are starting to avoid you. Those facts don't take away from the fact that at least one thing has gone right today, or is right with you. You are a precious child of the universe and are called a human being, not a human doing, for good reason. You don't have to earn your value. You were born with it. Got it? Good. There's a lot of different reasons why you might be unable to motivate yourself when and where you want to be motivated. And I'm going to share 3 stories with you today, as well as talk about your responsibility in this. That's right, your ability to respond, since you're not off the hook here. And I hope that at least one of these stories is going to resonate with you and be of benefit. So let's keep going. Shifting gears to our first story. Bruce had been an undergraduate student for 7 years now and just didn't seem to be motivated to graduate with his 4-year degree. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost sight of what it was that he was going to school for and how all the effort that was required of him would play out with positive results in his life if he engaged more than he currently was. He'd gotten comfortable attending college as he was, taking a few courses here and there and working in the field of his major. Perhaps he saw that he was already doing part of what he wanted to do with his life and wasn't clear on what finishing his degree would actually do for him. Without that insight or information, he would most likely continue on as he was. And even though the college had spoken to him about graduating and indicated that they were there to support him academically and help him to get graduated, it didn't seem to make a difference. They even told him that he couldn't continue to attend the college for an indefinite period of time, as that's not how the college was set up. It didn't matter that he continued to pay for his tuition. They just weren't happy with him dragging his feet and not applying himself to the course of study that he signed up for and completing it. The financial aid people were also contacting him because at the reduced course load that he was taking, he no longer qualified for a deferment of his loans, and the payments were going to come due starting next month. None of these seeming pressures were good enough reasons for Bruce to be motivated to take action. His roommate Sam was confused by Bruce's seemingly lax attitude to all the stuff that was going on. They were close friends, and they had lived together for 7 years now, and Sam felt that he needed to have a serious talk with Bruce because what could be happening very soon was definitely going to affect him as Bruce's roommate. Quite frankly, he was worried about whether or not Bruce would be able to afford his share of their living costs, a very reasonable concern to have. Sam asked Bruce what he could do to help him to get graduated. He asked if Bruce needed tutoring, an accountability buddy, whatever he needed. If Sam could do it, he would. Bruce told Sam that he just didn't know what to say. He knew that he needed to get graduated and move on with his life, but he just couldn't get himself excited about it. He just wasn't motivated to buckle down and apply himself more fully. He told Sam that he was doing okay the way things were and that Sam shouldn't worry. Sam pointed out to Bruce all the things that Bruce seemed to be overlooking and hence wasn't worried about with his situation. That the college wanted Bruce to get graduated because it was going on too long. That the financial aid people would be sending a statement for Bruce to start making payments on their loans next month. And that Bruce was only working part-time and didn't make enough money to afford his loan payments and all of his other costs of living. And that he was going to need to work more hours at his job or get another job to generate more money. Sam put his foot down and said that he would be moving out if Bruce didn't listen to him and get motivated to make the necessary changes. Even that didn't motivate Bruce. If you're wondering what it was going to take to get Bruce motivated, you're not alone in your thoughts. Bruce was wondering the same thing, and so was Sam. The next day, Sam asked Bruce what his reason was for staying at the college. He also asked him what his original reason was for attending that college. Bruce said that he originally signed up for his major because he wanted to work in the field. But since he was now working in the field, he didn't see completing his major as necessary. Sam said that since it didn't appear to be necessary for Bruce to complete his degree, then perhaps he should just pursue his work life and let go of the idea of his degree. Bruce said that wasn't acceptable because he had spent 7 years working towards his degree and he needed to finish it. But the amount of time and money spent still weren't good enough reasons to motivate him to finish. Some background information. Generating a good enough reason to take action doesn't work when your reasons are punitive. The good enough reason needs to come from self-love and acknowledging, appreciating, and celebrating wins. First, what is the loving motive for taking the action? In other words, the loving reason. What's good about this decision for you? Next, what is loving about the action that needs to be taken? How will your self-love increase by taking this action? Using a strategy or technique from NLP is also helpful. Neuro-linguistic psychology, that is. The chunking up strategy. And it could go something like this. My good enough reason for applying myself to my studies and completing my undergraduate degree is that I will know that I kept my word to myself. And keeping my word to myself will do what for me? Well, it'll allow me to feel that I am more trustworthy than I used to be. And as I'm more trustworthy than I used to be, what'll that do for me? Well, that'll allow me to make more commitments with the faith that I will do what I said I would rather than flake on a commitment. And making more commitments that I keep will do what for me? Well, that'll allow me to have more of the life that I envisioned for myself years ago and I'd lost sight of. And having more of the life that I envisioned years ago will generate more self-confidence to envision yet an even greater life for myself. And envisioning an even greater life for myself with confidence will do what for me? Well, it'll allow me to embrace more of the options that life is presenting to me, as well as reject those that don't match my criteria or vision for my life. So what can you do if you relate to Bruce's story? We have 2 more stories before I get to some action steps. They're coming. Transitioning to our next story. Mindy was in her 50s and had never kept her word to herself with any consistency whatsoever. She didn't trust herself and others didn't trust her either. Why? Because what she said and what she did were 2 completely different things. And it's not that Mindy set out to be untrustworthy. It's just that what happened from lots and lots of bad habits that were connected with her ADHD had things move in this direction. She had this one habit I call choosing again. She made a commitment, but when the time came for her to follow through on that commitment and keep her word to herself or others, she didn't. She let herself off the hook and she chose again to do something else. And this other thing was never as important as what she was going to do. Plus, it was teaching her mind something very, very bad, that she was not to be trusted. See, it wasn't just that Mindy had become untrustworthy in her behaviors. Her mind had learned to not trust her and what she said. Until she reprogrammed her mind to trust her, she was doomed to live this untrustworthy life. Part of keeping your word to yourself is that you have to close all exits And by that I mean that you can't leave any escapes for yourself. And who's going to keep those exits closed? You have to, unless you turn your power and control over to another person to force you to do so, which doesn't lead you to greater maturity. Some background facts. Most people think that it's no big deal if they say that they're going to do something and they don't, especially if they tell themselves that no one's going to know. Someone will know, and that someone is you. Imagine a conversation between you and you inside your head that goes something like this. I'm going to get the laundry done today. Let's say it's Thursday night, so that I can have more free time over the weekend. And when it's time to gather up the laundry on Thursday night and put it into the washer, you just aren't in the mood, and you say something like, I don't feel like it, or I'll do it tomorrow. But you haven't checked to see that you even have time tomorrow. Or, I'm too tired to do it this week. It can wait until next week. I can always buy a few new things if I run out of clean clothes. Really? As an adult with ADHD, here's some of what gets worse with breaking your word to yourself repeatedly. Your ability to trust yourself. Your willingness to keep your word to yourself. There's a drop in your self-esteem. An increase in breaking your word to yourself. An easier time of choosing again and never getting anywhere. Thinking of a plan as an intangible instead of, if you say, I planned, there better be something tangible to see that plan. So what do you do if you can relate to Mindy's story? Well, we have one more story before I get into some action steps. They are coming. So let's transition to our next story. Damien grew up with a bit of mind blindness to his progress in life. He worked hard and he made progress, but since he didn't see his progress or think much of it since it was so small, he discounted it and he acted as if he hadn't made any progress at all. A good friend of Damien's, Saul, was shocked every single time Damien would start talking about how little he had done in his lifetime. He would recount his academic years and all his degrees that were earned, all the jobs that he had had since he was 16 and had mostly been supporting himself since then. The businesses that he'd started and he'd ran for years, even though they didn't become anything huge, they were still successful. And all the friends he had, people who truly cared about him. When Damien talked about his life and all of his achievements, it was clear that he had done a lot with his time. Yet when he just thought about his life in the privacy of his own mind, he told himself a very different story. And because Damien felt so negative about his life achievements thus far, he wasn't willing to engage fully with anything that he did, which is in part the reason for his moderate success instead of huge successes. Damien needed to have a different way of thinking about his life and getting clear when he talked to another person about his life. Everything that he thought of to track his progress and make it real for him seemed cumbersome and too time-consuming. He just wasn't interested in spending a lot of time doing something that he didn't enjoy. Some background facts. We live in a world that's filled with so many potential distractions. In order to not be pulled off course, we need to learn to say no more than we say yes. We need to hold a crystal clear vision of where we're going and the progress that we're making each and every day. And we need to create a way to map or track our journey in a way that suits our unique personalities. Some action steps. It's your responsibility to get the information and training you need. In other words, your ability to respond to your needs and meet them. If you relate to Bruce's story, your action step has 3 parts. Focus back at the beginning of your journey and ask yourself, what was your original reason for taking action? Following through and staying with the train of thought from the original reason, and ask yourself if you've already achieved your original goal or if there's still more to do. In self-management, check in with yourself on your feelings, because feelings are not facts. They are just in-the-moment energy bursts telling you something and then moving on. Manage your feelings and stick with the facts, not feelings, not solely. If you relate to Mindy's story, your action step has 3 parts. Focus. Make a list of everything you can trust about yourself. Things that you do now, no matter what, not the things that you're struggling with. Following through, keep track for a week of all of these things that you can trust about yourself and celebrate your wins every day before you try to add in something new to trust yourself with. Build up the celebration and the self-love and the self-trust. In self-management, pay attention to your emotions about receiving praise from yourself for what you currently can trust yourself to do. If you relate to Damien's story, your action step has 3 parts. Focus on how you would most enjoy tracking your story, your journey. Perhaps make a little movie or tell a little story, whatever makes you smile. Follow through once you've determined what makes you smile and record your story. Self-management. Be prepared for this to take time and manage your feelings of impatience or irritability about how much effort this might feel like. Even if it's a lot of effort now, it's well worth the effort in the long run for a quality of life that's so much better than the one that you might currently have. A favorite quote of mine. Steve Jobs said, "I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today was the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something." The question I have for you at this point of our journey together is, do you need to change something? And is today the day that you do? I appreciate you showing up to listen today and in the future. New episodes are released twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. And as a subscriber, the newest episodes will be in your feed by 1 a.m. Pacific time. Plus, you won't miss out on any extra episodes that I create with special guests. Certainly a really good reason to subscribe. Perhaps make a date with yourself to listen to each podcast episode so you hear your questions answered if you asked any of me, or just enjoy all the episodes where I'll be talking about such compelling topics as analysis paralysis, severe anxiety, and more in-depth separate episodes as a spin-off from episode 13's multi-level topic. So if you received value today or from any other episode, please take a few minutes and rate the show on iTunes. Maybe even write a thoughtful review there too, so I know that I'm meeting your needs. And if you feel that your friends and family would benefit, please share this with them as well. You know, I savor each and every personal email or post from a listener who's sharing their experience of the podcast show with me. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. Remember, if you have questions that you'd like me to answer about living with adult ADHD, please scoot over to my website, and under podcasts, you're going to find the Ask Dr. B button and ask away. I look forward to receiving your questions and answering them, so please ask. And you can sign up on my website to receive periodic email updates on new happenings with Dr. B, or just download your show notes and learn about other services. That is, if that's of interest to you. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're hungry to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com and see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with one-to-one attention and community support, or on your own with self-study, or could benefit from coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information right there at drbarbaracohen.com.